Well, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, John Donovan. Good
Hey,
afternoon
Marty.
to our special guest, Deanna Pfau. John, I understand you're somewhere in Northern California this weekend.
I'm in Capitola,
Wow.
just a little bit south of Santa Cruz. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
Hmm.
And our special guest is in, I believe, Wilmington, Delaware,
That's right.
Oh my God, I didn't know that. That's incredible.
Why
all
is
the way from
that?
the East
Which
Coast.
one of the states I've never been in?
Ah, it's a lovely little state. We like it here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, my entire experience in Delaware is driving from DC to Philadelphia, but
Yeah, the old 95 corridor.
exactly, exactly. Well, one of the, it's just great to welcome you, Deanna. I'm
Thank you.
particularly excited to have you join us. Deanna is relatively new to the accountability practice, and she's already learned a lot. If it's okay with you, I'm going to reveal that you're a faithful listener of the podcast, and
Yes.
she's actually been listening to them week after week from the beginning. So um, she'll be able to she'll be able to give the podcast herself in the future.
Not.
So this is like training wheels for you here.
Yeah, I hope they don't fall off.
Yeah. And so you were telling me before we got started here that part of the genesis for your being here is that you were having a conversation with John, I believe, about women's intuition, and John
Yeah, I
said
just
something to the effect, "Well, why don't you come on the podcast and talk about that?"
it was an off the cuff comment, and I
Hmm.
walked right into it. I was like, oh, okay, here we go, here we are.
And of course,
Yeah.
we generally have about an hour, so you don't have to limit we don't have to limit ourselves to anything, any particular topic.
Beautiful.
Because I'm also interested if you're willing to share with us about how you found this work
Yeah.
and what maybe for somebody who's listening for the first time or like yourself is relatively new, what your experience has been,
Mm-hmm.
um, and maybe see if there's any things that you're still trying to make sense of that John can help with, or things that um, you found maybe puzzling originally, and you're starting to get your own sense of it and would like to explore in greater detail.
Fantastic.
So how does that sound?
That sounds great.
Okay, John, does that work for you?
Yeah, it works really well for me. I'm so happy to have you on. What I wanted to add to that is that Deanna is in the education field. She's a teacher. So which is significant that you're learning what we're talking about or learning about yourself, which you bring into the classroom too. So
Yeah.
that's very powerful.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, then that's something else you could you could share with us.
I I could talk. I could come. There's so many things I could talk about. I know I won't have enough time.
So.
Well, who says this is the last time you're on the podcast?
Yeah, yeah. I'm very passionate about a lot of topics.
I,
Uh,
I
yeah.
think you noticed that most
I'd
of
love to
our
tell how I got here.
okay, why don't we
Go.
start there
Yeah.
if that works
Hmm.
for you?
Yeah, I really I love when people share how they came to the
Sure.
practice. Um, and I'm relatively a newcomer, so I'm talking to newcomers and welcome. You're in a really, really good place. And I would like to rewind before I rewind just 5 years ago, just so you kind of know me a little bit. I live in Wilmington, Delaware. I've been married to 38 years to my best friend. We have two beautiful daughters and one grandchild, a grandson, Judah Daniel. He's 3 years old. Like John, I have two daughters and one grandson, and
Hmm.
he's the
Also with a
joy,
biblical name.
very strong. Yes, he's the love and light of my life. I love that little boy so much. I just saw him today, as a matter of fact. My husband and I are both educators. My husband's full-time job is he is a life coach and has been close to 20 years with the ICF, the governing body for all of coaching. across the world. And he trains coaches. I have coaching experience. I'm not credentialed like he is, but I have had a number of hours doing that. I love doing that. So we are both very passionate learners. We're also very, very passionate about self-discovery and self-actuation. You will love this, John. My husband's byline for his business is guidance into authentic, intentional living. And that has been,
wow.
yes, that has been his byline for 20 years. And so when I came across your work, I was like, it just hit me recently in one of the podcasts because you say authentic, intentional living a lot on the podcast. And we really were very passionate about people knowing who they are, how they're made, what their gifts are, and what they have to contribute to the world. And yet, for all of that, wonderful, wonderful marriage and all of those things, I suffered terribly with a severe eating disorder for 40 years. For me, sugar was like heroin. I did things with food that people do with drugs. It got that bad for me. I understand now that I have my body chemistry cannot tolerate only a certain level of sugar, or else it's like heroin for me. And so 3 years ago, 2019, I went into recovery, and I got a lot of really good help. I actually had a big book sponsor. I love the big book and went to a lot of big book meetings. I even went to AA meetings, and I found really, really a lot of good help and got that arrested. And so I could actually do deeper spiritual work. But I got to a certain point a year ago. I did Al-Anon for about a year because my father was alcoholic. He's deceased now. But I knew something was missing, and I'd gone to ACA. I found the meetings triggering for me and overwhelming initially. I pulled back from those wisely. I had someone in my fellowship say, why don't you just concentrate on your addiction right now? That's a big load. And I loved that advice, and I took it. But at the beginning of this year, I knew I needed to go back to ACA. I just found myself floundering though. I really didn't see the structure in ACA that's in the other rooms, and I guess because it's the dumping ground for a lot of 12-step programs, I kind of just funneled down into ACA, and I just felt about overwhelmed until a fellow in ACA had stumbled upon you somehow. I think from another ACA, or to be quite honest, I don't believe I've asked her. And she says, you got to come to this meeting. You got to come. She sent me I think she probably sent me the ABCs of accountability. It's the same podcast that I send to a lot of people who are curious about your work. I was like, oh, this is different. Let me go and check that out. And the thing that I love and still love about you, John, is that well, first of all, you're one of the most compassionate, kind men I've ever met. It literally, it shines out of you. It emanates from your very core. I got that right away. So thank you for that. I was made to feel safe in these meetings, and you presented the material in a way that to make me curious and want to come back. And I still I'm continuing to come back. So, but to rewind 5 years ago, and it's why it's important, and it actually goes to the topic of women of intuition. It's funny, I say women's intuition. We all have intuition. I think women obviously have it a little bit more because we're more hormonal, maybe because we've been designated to take care of bringing up, children, and we're more protective and nurturing. So we're more in tune with our feelings. The culture says that we're allowed to be to a certain point, although, women that are too emotional or hysterical and incompetent. So, there's that fine line in the culture. But this goes to intuition, because I knew 5 years ago when we moved here that I was in a really bad place, just physically, emotionally, spiritually, every which way. And I found a chiropractor locally who was more holistic in her approach. And I worked with her. I still am with her. But she made a profound impact on my life. And for the first time, well, I'm just going to tell you, I'll just tell you what happened. I would go for regular adjustments, and she would also do stem on me. And I would lay on the table. She hooked up the stem. If anybody knows about chiropractic, you'll know what I'm talking about. But she would lower the lights, and she would play Reiki music. And week after week, I would go. And something began happening in my body that yielded visions that I had. My faith is very strong. My higher power is God, through the Trinity, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. And I began having these visions of a younger self, an adult self, and Christ, for all intents and purposes, guiding me through what my spiritual director would later tell me. So I would describe these even to my chiropractor. I would describe these visions, and they would tell me, Dan, what's happening is you're integrating. This is healing that's going on, and you're coming back into an integrative whole. So I was very curious about that. And at the end of 2018, I was on the telephone with a friend, a fellow coach, in fact. And anytime I'm near the end of a year, I'm always reflective. And I said, just suddenly, it was as if I projected into the future my destiny. And I said, something's coming in 2019. I sensed it in my spirit. I said, I don't know what it is, but it's going to be really, really good. And that year is when I went into recovery. Now, that year was also the year that my daughter gifted me with our grandson. And so many amazing things began. That literally opened the door. So, and I also realized that I wanted to come home to the body that I hated, the body that I had hated for 40 years, that I had lived my life from the neck up. Everything was cerebral for me, because it was the place I went for refuge. The imagination, love to write, that was my safe space. But I knew if I were going to go on this internal journey, that I'd have to come home to my body. I don't know how I knew that. I just knew it. And so I began to look up books on Amazon. One of the ones that I came across, I actually brought today. You guys may know about this book, Your Body Knows the Answer, by Using Your Felt Sense to Solve Problems, Affect Change, and Liberate Creativity by David Rome. And I knew that I would probably, yoga would help. I was trying to get into my body, and it was when I finally was able to work on the addiction, that I was finally beginning to unfold. And when I found you in this work, it was as if my higher power had prepared me, taken me all down those avenues to get me to this point. And it is this work that allows me to continue my ACA work now. and I feel stronger for it. I feel that I'm more effective and I have the tools that won't overwhelm me in some of those meetings. So, yeah, that's a little bit of my journey, but um, I'm learning to trust myself more. I'm learning to trust my instincts more. I'm learning that I'm not wrong. I'm strong. So yeah, that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Uh-huh. Very good. Wow. Very well said. Very well said.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So let's assume that I don't know anything about what you're talking about. Um, so when you say the work, what is the work that you're referring to? You say, I'm involved in the work, and I mean, I know what that is. John knows what that is, but somebody listening to this for the first time or first couple of times might think that he or she knows, and maybe there's a different answer for everybody. But I'm curious what your answer is.
Hmm. Well, I'm still a young Padawan, so
Well, let me say the work is in the accountability tree. And before I introduce the accountability tree, I talk about obstacles and how the brain works to protect old information, to protect you from your experience. All our experiences up until this moment are registered, stored, so that if anything comes that was harmful before, we can notice it and move away. And then I introduced the childhood trauma, family of origin dysfunction, childhood trauma as a body of information that's feeding this mechanism. I want to use the term reticular activating system, which is a filter so that it filters out non-essential information based on what your belief and focus is. So I talk about the logistics of decision making, and then wherever you find yourself, isolated, alone, wherever you find yourself is always in alignment with your experience. It cannot not be in alignment with your experience. So if you own the truth about where you're at, which I'll do mine, hi, my name's John, I'm an alcoholic, or me owning an abusive behavior, like the statement maybe, I am mean to the point of cruelty, that statement of truth is in alignment with the information that produced that behavior. And there's a feeling tone that happens. Um, and in that feeling tone, there's a validation of whatever happened to me as a child that would lead me to be mean and keep people away from me. See, to that child, that made sense. Um, and it created pain, separation, impacted the people I loved in adverse and destructive ways. And I found that I couldn't stop. Well, this mechanism was on my side, only it was misinformed about the truth about what's happening. I was still in my childhood experience, subconscious not knowing it, and the behaviors in my adult life were irrational. I couldn't justify the amount of intensity I would go into it over little things, simple things. And then I want to stay with that accountability tree process. I say the truth, no blame, no judgment. Just simply say, I mean, to the point of cruelty. With that, and what I mean by no blame, no judgment is not the story about it or the excuse about it or the why about it. I mean, to the point of cruelty, take a breath, and that feeling tone is what I wasn't able to feel when I was a child. There's a healing, and I say I intend to be kind. If I'm working with somebody, whatever their statement of truth, I'm unworthy, I hate myself, I don't like people, nice deep breath, feeling tone, and then lead them into an intent in that feeling state, because our experiences are registered and stored in a frequency. And then when I'm in that frequency state, I say, I intend to be kind, whatever the level of awareness of the pain of what happened. And there's no words to this sometimes, most of the time. I say, I intend to be kind. There's a fusion of resettling into the subconscious. Now this mechanism that got me to scream and yell because the toast is burnt is looking for ways for me to be kind and opportunities. And my perception actually changes because it's not being filtered through that old pain. Every time I explain this, I do it differently. And I'm glad we're recording this because I like that. So yeah, that's the work. The work is simply owning the truth about where you find yourself. I'm miserable. I have all this. I have the house, the car, the boat, the husband, the 2 kids, the picket fence, and I have. It's like, why am I upset? Why am I in anxiety? Why am I worrying? Oh, well, I'm glad you asked. Family of origin dysfunction, childhood trauma, because there's nothing in the current reality that would justify the behavior. And one of the things that led me on this journey of discovery was the Bible phrase, or not the Bible phrase, but the Romans 7:15, when Paul said the statement, "Why do I do that thing I don't want to do? I know the thing I want to do, and I find myself doing the thing I hate." Well, I got an answer, and the answer is total experience. Part of it's subconscious because that thought it was a good idea to keep me safe, which is completely counterintuitive. So I'm screaming and yelling. The purpose is to keep me safe, and yet it causes more pain and more separation and more destruction. Amazing. So,
Well, the irony is, if I could pick up on that, the irony is that creating that pain was the way to keep me separate, because keeping me separate kept me safe.
yes.
So, for example, in my household, uh, my father, who was only 22 when I was born, and then went on with my mom to have 10 kids by the time he was 33, and they were the same age. And he was drinking all that time. My experience of him was he might come home from work and be pleasant and charming, or he might come home from work and be angry and cruel. And so, what little Marty learned to do is basically stay out of the way. And that essentially got generalized into stay out of the way of anybody, and then I'll be okay.
Yeah.
I won't, not only will I not be subject to the cruelty, that was tough enough, but what was tougher was the ambiguity and the not knowing which father was going to come home. So I learned to protect myself by finding ways to keep people away. And as you said, entirely counterintuitive to what my adult experience and expectation is, entirely counterintuitive to what the culture teaches me. And so for me, the work is starting out to learn to accept myself just the way I am. And once I do that, that's my shortened version of what you said, John.
Yeah.
Once I can accept myself, so going through that process, I'm mean to the point of cruelty, or whatever the experience is, the self-critical, self-hating experience is, to give myself permission to be self-hating and cruel, and to feel, again, like you said, just to feel into the truth. I mean, Deanna, you spent a lot of time in your share about learning to be in touch with your body, and introduced, or letting us know about Your Body Knows the Answer, the David Rohn book. So the work is to let my body heal my mind by using my mind to pay attention to my body, and to create to recreate the conscious relationship between the body and mind. It's always there. The relationship's always there. But I was trained to use my mind to push away the unpleasant feelings that are associated with that, in what we say in adult children of alcoholics, is the experience of abandonment, the experience of separation, the experience of repression, emotional repression or emotional violence that inevitably almost all, if not all, children experience just by the nature of childhood.
Yeah. And it's really easy to see it through the eyes of see how it could happen through watching my young grandson, and young children that I work with all the time, they literally navigate their entire world through the felt sense.
Yes.
They don't have the capacity that we do to rationalize or uh, differentiate or conceptualize. For them, everything, it's so important that they approach their world that way because that's all the mechanism that they have. And so in the first 5 years, and you're in a home where similar, Marty, I remember getting off the bus every day and just dreading the walk up the hill to that front door. Because, I didn't even know what the term hypersensitivity was, but even now, just even seeing that picture in my mind, literally right now, I can feel a knot in my stomach just talking about it. I literally can put myself back there dreading, dear God, what's going to happen today? And escaping to my room, where that was my refuge. And, but you have to learn to push down the felt sense. You have to learn to kill it because the very people that you love and they love you are contradicting themselves at every turn. And the rules are always changing. You're confused out of your mind and you're scared. So you learn so from the get-go, you don't trust yourself. So you block all that off. And for me, ice cream and cookies was my comfort. It's something for everybody. But yeah. So now the work, honestly, for me is almost kind of like becoming like a little child again. And I love that. It's a return to childhood. And it reminds me of the verse in the scriptures where Christ says, unless you become like a little child, you cannot inherit the kingdom of heaven. And I was like, wow, it's so much simpler. We overcomplicate things. So this work to me is very childlike. And there's a pure innocence to it. But it's very hard at the same time. And we had that experience the other night in our gut check meeting, right, Marty?
Sure.
Yeah. I was talking about some recent current life events where life just gets real lifey on me. And and I was not liking any of it. But the one question that I get from the podcast that you guys say this over and over and over again, where do you find yourself? Where do you find yourself? Where are you? And can you allow yourself to be there without shame, blame, or judgment? And I can say for what I've gone through in the last couple of weeks, it's been incredibly painful and triggering. I remember telling my husband at one point, I will not abandon myself again. I will step toward the pain and go through it and I promised little Deanna that I won't abandon you. I'll do the work. I'll do the work. We'll do it together, but you're not alone. And the image, I think it's in these meetings, was it you guys that talked about every time, you feel that fight or fear coming up and you literally feel it. Imagine your little self while literally pulling at your pant leg. Was it you guys?
Yeah, I've said that. That's my experience.
Is that you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that has been a very, very powerful image for me. And how does that feel for me bodily? It's usually somewhere in the solar plexus. It's usually where I can feel my chest constricting. I might not always know what's going on, but something tells me something's going on, and it's not something I enjoy, but that it must be paid attention to.
Mhm.
And it sometimes it can take a while. It took me 2 weeks to get to the bottom of it, and it just depends upon the level of what it is, how triggering it is. Some things are not as triggering as other things.
Mhm.
Some of it may be for me just because I'm so new to it. Um, but I'm finding my way, and that's a beautiful thing about it is once you begin to work, it's really organic. You just kind of have to, you know, trust yourself, trust the process. Yeah,
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
let me throw my pitch in for attending meetings, because one of the ways I learn to trust the process is I observe other people trusting the process.
true.
I observe people going through this work, and that again, the work, confronting the fears, confronting the anxieties, confronting the self-hatred, um, and watching them be willing in front of a group of relative strangers, um, and be willing to be vulnerable to um, what could be coming if we didn't trust
Mhm.
the strangers.
Mhm.
What if we were doing this on Twitter, we probably wouldn't be very very nice. But we're doing it in a different kind of environment where people are choosing to share the each other's work, and so I can't I can't find the words to emphasize the power of doing this in group. The group is an accelerant to my recovery.
Mhm.
Agreed.
In a certain way, it's alchemical. I don't know that I could show you on a chart how that works, but it does.
One of the things I've said for a long time, and I absolutely believe, is that my wounding came in the presence of people, and necessarily my healing is going to come in the presence of people. Alice Miller calls it being having an enlightened witness, somebody who just sees you, feels you, doesn't expect you to do anything differently, and accepts and then validates where they see you're at. There's people that come on the Saturday morning group are in crisis. And sometimes the best I can do is say, I'm hearing your pain. I'm seeing that you're in crisis, and I want you to know that I see that, and that and there's sloughing happening. There's um, feeling validated. Yeah, it's really powerful. And there's, we're talking the best we can from our experience about this work. This podcast be 10 hours long, it would just be the tip of the iceberg about the different processes and how they feel and what they look like. And I started this by owning my character defects, by saying the truth about where am I. Well, right now I'm drunken in my car. I'm right here, or I'm at a AA meeting, or I'm feeling anxiety without just being able to say it. I remember the first time I said something, probably wasn't the first time, but one of the times I said something, and it's like, I'm afraid to talk in groups and I feel self-conscious, and everybody clapped, and it's like, yay, yeah, us too. And it's like I felt at home, and I've taken that that capacity for me just to say where I'm at. And then I've worked in the jails for 20 years, and these men are on guard, they're guarded. I ask them to be accountable, and they say, "Screw you! I'm sitting in my accountability in this jail cell." And then, and that's what our culture sees accountability as: somebody who's punishable, somebody held liable. And my definition of accountability is my ability to account for where I find myself, the behavior that I'm in right now. I'm violent, I'm judgmental. One of the ways to get to that truth about me is when I have issue with somebody else and I project onto that person's mean. Well, okay, maybe so, but it's coming from my experience and I know meanness. So I just simply own I'm mean in this safe place. No blame, no judgment, just accounting, stating the data like a spreadsheet. This is the black side, this is the red side. And then taking a breath. And in the breath, there's no story, and there's a feeling tone, which when I first did it, it was like I had no idea what it was. I intend to, and I've discovered that this word intent has a frequency, it's a command frequency. So if I go, I'm mean to the point of cruelty, and there's a constellation of things that happen, memories of how I treated my kids, how I was treated as a child, and it all comes together. It's not just one feeling or thought. And there's this frequency that happens, and I say, I intend to be kind. It's like now part of me. I have now embodied an experience that has the experience of non-judgment, non-blame. And now I take that to the rest of my life. And one of my favorite things to say is, do it again, do it again, do it again. And I've been doing it for.
When you set the intention, Don, do you feel a shift bodily?
I don't always feel like it's not always like profound.
Or a settling or a peace or something like that?
I usually find the settling or the sloughing in the truth. Like I mean, to the point of cruelty, there's this like awareness, this validation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm validating that little guy inside me. And there's a sloughing of energy that happens. And I intend to be kind is well, a command statement. It's I intend to be kind. Well, the word intent has a frequency that the reticular activating system, subconscious midbrain, brainstem hears as pay attention, do this for me. Just like the intent or what I experienced as a child being criticized and judged or punished or ostracized was I'm no good. It was about me. And this mechanism uh, um, experienced this, created a belief and a vow that no one's going to do this to me again, or watch out for when somebody raises an eyebrow because this might happen. And I find myself reactive in my adult life. And so when I say my experience, the truth, whatever the character defect is, breathe, I intend, I start noticing the difference in my perception, in how I respond, in my facial muscles. Sometimes my shoulders are relaxed. The main feeling I get is in the statement of truth. And from that, things come to me. It's like, I like be kind. There's nothing kind about me. It's like I used to see kindness as weakness. So why would I say I want to be kind? So, but then it just comes. See, that's when we were talking about you talking about intuition. What was taken away from me, what I'm learning that was taken away from me in my childhood trauma, was my capacity for imagination, my capacity for inspiration, and my capacity just to know something, just to intuit, just to know, don't go over there. And then don't go over there, to pay attention to that. Because our awareness bodies, our emotional bodies are bigger than we are. Our physical body is outlined by our skin. Our emotional bodies are outlined. I don't know where that outline is. Some of us have stronger or weaker. And it's like some of the things we've said in our culture is like, you could cut the tension in the room with a knife. Well, that's not physical. And I felt it. And I wouldn't pay attention to it. Well, I'm not weak. I'm not afraid. And walk into it. It's like, no, 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 no. I'm going to find out what I feel that tension, and I'm going to pay attention to it. That's intuition, what people call intuition. And it
Mm-hmm.
goes deeper. It's like everything we're saying has levels of depth to it that we could discover more. So, and we
And
start exactly where
as
we're
you
at.
guys
So,
talk a lot about in the podcast, you talk a lot about pre-verbal and how our language does it's limiting to
yes.
that reality. Um,
Yep.
and my sense of it is enormously vast, very
Mm-hmm.
spacious, um, freeing, uh, yeah, enlightening,
Mm-hmm.
anticipatory,
Mm-hmm.
like it's waiting to be explored.
See, yes. It's when I'm doing right now in this moment, I'm not thinking. And I'm having a coherent dialogue with you, and I hear myself say these things, but see, that's
Mm-hmm.
coming out of my total experience. And I'm connected to everything, everybody through my emotional body. It's like, where am I getting this information? Where do I get the information to intuit that there's tension in the room? Oh, from my emotional body. The emotion is a frequency, a wave. My body is a receiver. It feels, it senses. It's like you hit a tuning fork, it's vibrating. Well, whatever information's hitting my body, I'm feeling. I can learn to not feel it. I can learn to dismiss it. I can learn to say I'm not feeling. I cannot not feel. And we are always in that feeling tone, and then wonder at our sanity. Like, how come I can't concentrate, or what's wrong with me? Uh, Take a breath. There's a lot going on around you. It's like, oh wow, okay. So that's where I'm at right now. So
One of the one of the features of the developmental reality is again, it goes to the book that you referred to, and there are many other books that we refer to. The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, and Gabor Mate has a book on the body.
when the
Is
body
that
says no.
when the body says no, thank you. So it's that capacity to trust that um, immediate sensation that the body is always creating, because the body's a vibratory uh, dynamo. It's a dynamo. Our bodies are nerves are pulsing, the blood is, or the heart is pumping, so there's always something going on in the body that generates sensation. And here's the thing: is there's no opposite to it. There's no opposite to the feeling. There's the feeling. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the key, because when I'm present in the present moment, there's no opposite to the present moment. There's past and future are just thoughts. The presence itself is an infinity. And so when I can get there, this is the power of intention from my perspective. When the reason that goes to Deanna's question about the shift, the reason when I feel that ah, I'm in the feeling, so I can be nowhere else. I'm I'm in the feeling as a body sensation, but as a truth, I'm in infinity. So I'm in the ground of all possibility. What do I want? In that moment, John, that's why this work so called to me, even though I had no experience with it at all before I met you, is
Mm-hmm.
that I intuitively knew that being present in, even when it was uncomfortable, and I felt embarrassed to say this stuff out loud in front of people, blah blah blah, I knew that it was true with a capital
Mm-hmm.
T. I knew it was the truth. And I knew the truth sets me free. Let's get biblical again. All of this stuff is there in the Gospels, and it's also in the sutras of the Buddha. It's all there. And these guys are trying to teach this to them in the hearing of their culture, and so they had to use these terminologies that may or may not have fallen on aware ears, but doesn't matter. Now, in that vibration that I'm present with, my intention is planted in infinity. And so the possibility of that intention now being fulfilled is enormous, because it's not connected to a condition. It's not connected to a circumstance. It's not connected to it's not connected to a temporary time. It's there. And like you said, now it goes into the brain. It literally goes into our bodies, folks, into the brain. The brain is physical, and it changes because the brain is plastic. And some parts of the brain change quicker. The frontal lobes, the gray matter changes quicker than the brain stem, but it changes. And that's the power of this work. Every time I set an intention that comes out of my feeling, I am rewiring my brain. And then that rewiring.
And also creating possibilities.
Correct.
See, yes.
And that rewired brain now starts seeing this new world. This is John's point about the reticular activating system, which is part of the brain structure. Now starts seeing these things that were utterly invisible before.
Yeah.
And yet they were always there.
Always there. I couldn't see them.
So just as I was driving home to prepare for our time together, somebody cut me off in traffic. My first reaction was, "You asshole."
Mm-hmm.
But I'm now trained. So I felt that. I felt my heartbeat, and I said, "Okay, I'm the asshole. So what?" And the person disappeared.
Yeah.
He disappeared, or she
You were
disappeared off
reveling in
my
your
emotional
character
radar
defects,
screen.
is that right?
What's that?
You were reveling in your character defects.
I'm reveling in my character defect. I'm laughing at my humanity. Well, yeah. Here I am. I'm heading to the podcast with the guru, and I'm
very humbling, right?
Yeah.
Reminds me when I was growing up and my mom would always take us to church and everything. We'd be in the car. She would be yelling and screaming at us and just carrying on. And then she'd get into, "Hi, how you doing, Mrs. Smith?" And I'd look at her like, "You are such a hypocrite."
Yeah.
Yeah, and the
Sounds
irony is
familiar.
she's not a hypocrite. She's a human being.
That's true.
But we didn't
I
see
was a
that.
hypocrite because we all do the same thing. But
Yeah,
when I was
right.
growing up, I used to look at my mother like, "You are two different people, lady."
Mm-hmm.
The truth of the matter is we're all a lot more than two people.
Yeah.
Again, you can find that in the Bible in Matthew, and Jesus says, "You hypocrite, take the log out of your eye. You can see the mote in the other person's eye, but you can't see the log in your own."
Yeah.
Like, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so now I do accountability. Okay, I'm willing to own the log in my eye.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to be okay. I'm a hypocrite. I'm a hypocrite.
Yep.
Ooh, how does that feel? Ooh.
It's like a boomerang, comes right back at your heart.
Yeah. It constricts my upper chest, and it causes me to breathe shallow. Okay, so I'm a hypocrite. That's how I feel. What do I want? Oh, okay. I want to be at ease. I want to be carefree. I intend to be at ease and carefree.
There you go.
And then,
Can you
as John
stop with the want and not say an
repeat.
intend? Is the word magical, John, or
Yeah, it is. You can if one of the ways I see that is I want is a good way to identify something that you can now create the intent about. We live in a universe that gives you everything you want. So if you say, "I want peace," the universe will allow you to want peace for eternity. If you go, "I intend to live in peace," that's a direction, that's a command, that's a commitment. And it's not a commitment from your rational brain. This creative mechanism we keep talking about, midbrain, brainstem, reticular activating system, is from which our manifestation comes from. It's the hub. It's the nexus, mind, body, spirit, and oh my God, it's what has created everything you see.
Mm-hmm.
It
Just
is unbelievable. Our capacity as human beings has been denigrated for so long. The body is weak, the flesh is weak. Well, guess what? Okay. No, 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 it's not. It's
it's
misguided.
very
I'll grant you
powerful.
that.
Yeah.
It's got a shitload of misinformation. It is
Yeah.
bad news and good news is it's manifesting that misinformation. It's creating in my adult life the body chemistry of fight, flight, freeze, please that I had in my childhood. That's out of thin air. So if I see the creative power of this and don't fight it, own, I mean, to the point of cruelty, this goes, I'm glad you're listening to me. I'm trying to keep you safe. I've been working so hard for you. You validate it.
Like a little orphan in there.
Yeah. You validate
Yeah.
it. You go, I intend to be kind. They go, yes. And then it seeks and finds and provides and takes the filters out of things I couldn't see before. An example of this, I come home, not in my recovery, I get the question, where the hell have you been? I flip out. I'm screaming and yelling, slamming doors. Okay, after this process of owning my character defects, and somebody says, "Where the hell have you been?" I go, "Oh, I see that. Oh my God, I see you're concerned for me. I see you love me. I see you care about me. Well, let me tell you where I've been. Let me be accountable for not calling you because I see that you're upset." Same question, totally different experience. Amazing. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, what I was looking for before my recovery was always standing right in front of me. I saw it as the enemy, the emasculator. Now I see it as, oh my God, there she is. Oh my God, this is it's unbelievable.
You know, it's interesting, Deanna, that the root word from Latin that we use in intention is the same root word that we use in tenacity
Wow.
Hmm.
or attention, as John said earlier. So it's that that's a ten. The Latin word means to hold,
Mm-hmm.
to hold. So when I intend, I'm holding the universe to this new experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I describe it as a mini Big Bang.
Yeah,
I'm making the point of cruelty. This constellation of feeling and experience and just kind of moves around. I go, I intend to be kind. I go, yes, boom. Uh, I'm
yeah,
living in a different universe. It's like I'm perceiving differently.
right.
Um, and when people go through the process and they go, oh, what do I do now? No, 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 nothing. Pay attention, but do what you did before and own where you find yourself because it will be different. Even if you say, I mean, to the point of cruelty, there'd be an edge off or there'd be something different about it that wasn't there before. You owned it, nurtured, I intend, use your power, empowerment. And on the actual tree, there's brackets on each side of the my truth, emotion, I intend. One side says power, the other side says choice. Oh my God.
Mm, beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, on that note, I note that our time is coming to an end here. And so, Deanna, as I guess, before I turn it over to John for the last word, I'd like to give you the second to last word. Anything that, any last minute thoughts about what you shared here, or maybe what you'd like to talk about next time you're on?
Oh man, thank you. I'm super humbled and honored to even sit with you guys. I have such tremendous respect and admiration for your work and never giving up on helping others and paying it forward. So thank you.
Mhm.
Um, I think I should probably share that this intention. Um, I recently made the intention to try to get this information to as many people as possible, and then John invited me on the program, and I was like, okay, I
Bingo.
even got goosebumps thinking about it now. And I'm super passionate about this information. It has a tremendous capacity to change your entire life, and it truly is. There's a story in the big book. I forget the title of it, but there's a line in the story that said, um, "I woke up and nothing had changed, but everything had changed." And that is the universe that this work can put you into. Like, you can still be like, everything around you looks the same, but nothing's the same.
Nothing.
And it is truly, truly miraculous. So thank you. And don't trust me, I will come up with a topic. I'd love to come back.
Okay.
I'd love to come back, truly. Thank you. It's an honor.
Yeah, and we'd love to have you back. And
thank you.
My last word is, you are powerful. You, Deanna, profound, and you are in a position to teach our children and affect that whole modality of teachers and people, and I'm really excited for that. So
thank you.
You're so
welcome.
welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm honored.
You're so welcome. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that a bit next time.
I could talk about kids all day.
Right. Okay. So you only get an hour, but at a time.
Yes.
Well,
they teach me a lot.
Deanna, thank you so much for coming all the way from Wilmington, Delaware, where it's probably dark there now.
It is. It actually is, and it's been very cold and blustery here today. It truly is like a beautiful November skies here on the East Coast, and it is feeling very much like Thanksgiving here on the East Coast.
There you go.
And happy Thanksgiving to you both.
Okay, same.
Thank you. You too. Yeah. And right. Same to you, John, and lovely Capitola. And for everybody, thank you for joining us, and we'll do this again in a couple of weeks.
See.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes. Okay.
God bless.
God bless.